it just took me a while, years. And I had people telling me, Brett, you need to do this, Brett, you'll make so much more money and you're good at it. And I'm like, I just don't know. I don't know if I can do it all. I don't know. And as much as I didn't like being at a desk, I was okay with it. It's just kind of settling for the norm.
This is Brent Richardson, and welcome to the Business Minutia Podcast, where our focus is on the details of business that are often passed over by traditional classes and leadership training. We focus on the stories of real people who have tried, failed, and learned through their experiences and are willing to share their lessons with others. Jamie, let's talk about babies and goats.
You mean kids?
Yeah, there's a dad joke in there somewhere. Right. So
there's a dad joke everywhere if you look hard enough.
Yeah, just got to spend a little bit of time, get some help from other dads. When we first moved where we lived, we had a plan to get some baby goats because we had a goat pen, and we had considered and thought, no, they're adorable. Yeah. And then the more we thought about it, the more we realized that's a lot of work. And you start doing some research into the processing.
The mortality rate? No,
it's not good. Eventually, somebody's had to kill goats, and this does not seem appealing to us. Let's go with vegetables. Let's go with a garden instead, right? Dogs are a little reasonable, and chickens are tolerable. We can make that work. But they sure are adorable. You know the best goats to have? Your neighbors, because then you can watch your neighbor, and God bless my neighbor, he's a fantastic guy, but I sure watch him wrestle with his goats. He has them get into his shop because they know there's food in there, and then I see him haul one out, throw him on the ground, and go, get back, and the goat looks at him and goes, back. Like, yeah, I want to go back in there, there's food. And he carries the other goat out. While he's carrying one out, the other one's going back in. So he just sits there and rotates over and over while I sit on my back porch.
You want to put a soundtrack to it.
And try not to laugh at him. I can't help myself. I wind up laughing every time. So the best goats to have are somebody else's goats. You feel that way about kids.
Well, yeah. Well, babies. Babies specifically. Yeah. There was a time in my life where, babies were cute and cuddly and fun and all that. But at this point in my life, your babies are cute and cuddly and fun because they're going home with you.
Exactly.
I'm happy to help you out for a little while, but they ain't my responsibility.
I talk about a little bit in this episode in the interview that there's one of the things I enjoy about watching certain YouTube channels is I get to live vicariously through other people. So I love these farming channels. They have these massive farms, massive equipment. The engineer in me loves seeing how they solve problems and the issues. But once the equipment goes down and I watch them, banging on things and getting angry, I go, I'm glad I'm not dealing with any of that, right? I'm glad I can basically, deal with my small time little, couple pieces of equipment that I have to maintain, and that's not too bad. There's something cool about living vicariously through other people when you have those kinds of dreams, whether you're holding babies and they're going to go home or watching your neighbor wrestle with goats. What does this have to do with business at all? We have a really, really, really cool opportunity. A good friend of mine is going off on his own and starting his own business. And we are going to start a series with Brett Boyd where he runs a garage door and gate business. Or he does as of yesterday. And he's been doing this as a side hustle for a while, but he is going off on his own.
To be clear, we're not talking about just starting his own thing. We're talking like no backup plan. There is no
He's
parachute.
All in. He is all in on this.
He has quit his job.
This
is his only income.
The interview was held on the day of his last day at that company, right? So it's fresh in his mind, and I wanted it to be. I wanted to catch this while it's still fresh, and you can hear the mental challenge that he's been through. You can hear the passion for what he's doing. It's really cool. I love this guy. I've traveled with him. We spent some time, and we have a mutual love of Alaska and the outdoors. And so I've spent time fishing with him. I've spent time hiking. We've summited peaks together, and we just our personalities. We just get along really well. I just love Brett.
I'm excited to watch him succeed.
I am too. And so we are positioning him as the protagonist in a story, for you guys to sit back, vicariously living through him. If you ever thought about starting a business, if you dreamed about this, you get to hear Brett's story and what he's going through, all the details. We talk a little bit about the details, but really this is an introduction of who he is. And then we're going to be walking through this journey with him to hear about all the challenges, advertising, marketing, all these different things. And I'm going to be bringing in, business partners experts that I have connections with to help him as well, to give him as much counsel as we can provide. I am looking forward to hearing from you guys, the listeners, who will have opinions on these things too. So this is going to be a fun journey. So the name of the company is
Integrity Garage Doors and Gate.
Folks, if you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you have need of garage door or gate repair or installation, give this guy a call. Check out our website, businessminutia.com. You'll see this episode, and in the show notes, we'll have links and information. We'll also put it on wherever you see us on social media. We'll have links there as well. Let him know that you heard about him through us, and he's going to hook you up with a special discount. Welcome our protagonist, Brett Boyd.
Started out as a youth pastor, and that's what I went to school to be, was in the ministry. And I was for about 10 to 12 years, and then stepped out because the church needed to financially. And I worked for the company that I just resigned of, and today was my last day.
You actively just resigned today?
Well, not active. I resigned 2 weeks ago.
Today was your last day. So you're officially...
Today was my last day. I took a picture at 3 o'clock on today's date that it was my last time to clock out.
This is the official milestone day.
Official milestone. Nice. I want to remember it.
So it's fresh on your mind.
Fresh in my mind. But I did that for 10 or so years. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed that and missions work. And then I had worked for this company prior, and I went back to work for them just because it was the field that I knew, and it was partially construction, so I had kind of an idea.
So before you were in ministry and were involved in church work, you were actually working at this company previously?
I worked for this company for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And then I went back. Then I went into full-time ministry. Okay. Yes.
And what was, well, you don't have to name the company, but what kind of work?
They wholesaled garage doors, door openers, and at the time they were doing fire extinguishers.
Okay.
They had an account with Home Depot, if I can mention that.
Sure.
And we did install sales for them. So there was a department that scheduled those installed sales, and I saw that as an extra way to make money. And so that's kind of how I got my feet wet in learning the business.
Okay.
On how to do some of that.
So then you came back to that and did this for a number of years, right? So how long have you been doing that since then?
How long? I've been back at that company for 10 plus years.
Okay, so you've been doing that for 10 plus years.
10 plus years, and pretty much immediately started doing doors and openers, and I did handyman for a really long time as well as a supplement to.
So you were kind of doing
income.
some things on the side as well.
Right? I've always done something on the side.
Yeah. So you always had some kind of side hustle.
I've always had a side hustle, yes.
But now your side hustle is becoming the hustle.
Now my side hustle's become the main hustle.
How did that happen? This has been working for a while, right?
This has been working for a while. I would say it was on the books to do really about 10 years ago, but then just some changes took place in my life. Felt like, hey, I needed stability. And so I kept what I thought was stable, because the garage door business has ebbs and flows. I mean, sometimes it's really busy. Sometimes it's really not. One of the times that it's not is the state fair. When the state fair is here, I just say, hey, everybody's spending their money on corny dogs and conies. It's just
fried
one of those
cheesecake.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, not garage doors.
And so it's the stability that I needed for a while, but I just didn't see my finances going up in the time that I was there. And it just, the more and more I looked at it, I was like, this is really just a dead end for me personally. For some people, it may be that's a great job. I mean, it seemed like a great hourly rate. Mm-hmm. But I was constantly wanting or needing overtime, and I was doing garage doors and gate operators, heavy on the gate operators on the side. And so I just felt like...
And your employer was okay with that? They were aware?
They were aware of it. They just kind of turned a blind eye towards it because one of the things that they told is we're not competing with you. We're a wholesaler. We're not competing with you. But I just kept it very quiet.
Yeah.
Not very many people knew that I did it. And that's why I concentrated more on the gates, because we didn't sell a whole lot of gate operators. We sold more of garage doors and door openers.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of kept getting bigger and bigger. And
to the point where you're seeing probably more income coming in from your side hustle than
last year I saw what I believe is just about as much coming in from my side hustle as my day job.
So,
Yes.
well, so we've talked about this in the past. You and I had this conversation maybe in Alaska. It seems like we were talking a little bit about this.
We probably were
5-6 years
probably
ago,
were.
right? And I know we've got a number of mutual friends saying you should start it. It's time to go. The reality is you've been doing this and incubating it for quite some time.
Yeah. It's past its incubation stage, really. I mean,
when you're making half your income from that, it's no longer, you're past
Right.
incubation. It's time to pull a cord and go all in. And today's the day.
Today's the day.
Today is the day. You are officially all in.
I walked out. I am all in.
It's exciting.
I am all in. Yeah. It just took a while to get me. I'm a very slow mover in that sense. My wife and I together don't make really fast, quick decisions like go buy that. We're like,
So talk to me about what were the hesitations, why you didn't do this 5 years ago.
Probably my struggles were just mentally, do I have what it takes? Do I have what it takes to do that? I did come from, a home where my parents were divorced, and I saw my dad on the weekends and he was great, and my mom had gotten remarried, but I don't know that I always learned everything myself. So I always felt like I had something to prove, or I had very much a perfectionist mentality about things, and where I think that's good because I want to go in and I want to fix everything on your gate or your door and go, this is here, it's set up, it's perfect.
Yeah.
But it just took me a while. Years. And I had people tell me, Brett, you need to do this, Brett, you'll make so much more money and you're good at it. And I'm like, I just don't know. I don't know if I can do it all. I don't know. And as much as I didn't like being at a desk, I was okay with it. It's just kind of settling for the norm. And it was kind of just knowing that, hey, I have what it takes. And I remember back a book that I read, and the guy was talking about, he didn't know if he could fix his faucet outside because he didn't know if he had what it took to do it. His dad never told him, you've got what it takes. And I don't know that I ever really heard, Brett, you've got what it takes. I had a few, cheering those, but like mom or dad, I don't know that I ever really heard, I just did stuff. Nowadays they go, well, we don't know. Brett just figured out how to do it and he just goes and does it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the truth. And so that's kind of my struggle with making it, do it, and then go, well, what if it doesn't work? I do not like failure, even though failure's a good thing sometimes.
Yeah.
And just not wanting to fail at it, because as let's say the breadwinner, you don't want to have that part where you're like, hey, I just didn't make enough money this month. And so those are some of the struggles, is just knowing that you got what it takes to do it. And
so how did you bridge the gap? Just time?
I think I bridged the gap at just time. I saw some things taking place in the company that I was working for that I didn't see myself moving any further or gaining any momentum financially, where, it was just, hey, here's your pay for the every other week. There was no savings. There was no future in it. Yeah. And
you're boxed in. You just kind of hit a lid.
Yeah. Hit a lid. And so I just felt like, hey, I'm 40, I'll be 45 in September. If I don't do this now, physically, I'm not going to be able to do it. B, I have to do it. I have to go. I have to prove this to myself. It's one of these things where I think about, like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to kill it. and I'm going to bring it home in the sense of hunting and provide meat for my family. And that's kind of what I see this as, is proving to myself, as well as there's a great adventure in this.
Sure.
To me, I love the mountains. I love the wilderness. I have no problem just taking off and going into the mountains, but I have a hesitation about doing this.
Right.
Whereas if I just visually look at it and go, okay, well, I've got a mountain, I've got an adversity on this side, and I've got a adversity on this side, but this is the way to get down it, because the stream's going down towards the ocean, and I'll get down from there. And I'm not as worried about that stuff as I am traversing the things in business and making sure that I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
When in reality, I won't do everything
But there's
right.
something to be said about, it's one thing to worry about fear of failure. It's a different thing to live with regret.
Correct.
Right? To me, at least, right? And so, and I have people talk to me about, somebody was asking me today about, starting a podcast. And I said, I knew when I started this, there'd be a certain amount of ridicule, a certain amount of, what is this guy doing? Something like we were talking about earlier. Some people listen in just to watch the dumpster fire and watch the trains collide, right? That's okay. I'd much rather deal with something that fails than I would live with regret about not trying something, right? Then it's really about trying something big.
Right.
What's the big thing to go try to So this is exciting, man. So what our listeners get to basically live vicariously through you. Anybody that's ever thought about starting a business, they get to go through some of the challenges and so it's cool to hear like that it didn't just happen overnight. Like we talk to some people who are just these natural born entrepreneurs that are just they're doubling down all the time. But I think small business and business ownership is not all those type A folks.
Right.
It's also folks that have been processing and thinking about this. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you've had to get prepared, tactically in terms of, we've talked a little bit about equipment. Are there tools? Like if you're going to start this business tomorrow or today, as you did, what kind of investment would you have expected to make? And then, little preview for listeners, you kind of already had all that ready to go because you've been doing this for a while.
I did have it all to go because I kind of leveraged, hey, I've got my day job and I'm making that and that pays my bills. And then I've got all this extra coming in. So I could stand to have a little fun and I could buy the welder that I kind of wanted. I could, buy my tools, and my wife has probably gone, just stop buying tools. Well, we need them for this job. And so I kind of did that knowing that I'm going into this so that when the rubber meets the road and what I make tomorrow is going to pay bills, I don't have to worry about getting a tool fixed or whatever. And that even included, upgrading a vehicle that I had to work out of and getting it to a way though I wanted it, because I am kind of particular. I do want to work with nice things to do that. And so I just kind of began to prepare that. There's a lot of guys in my industry that they get in, they learn it. Tomorrow they're out with their drill and their screwdriver. That's just not the way I want to do it. I want customers to call me back. They want them to know that I'm professional, that, I have anything from a t-shirt that looks like I drove up, and I don't drive up with, more trash in the back of my truck, than's in the dumpster. And in the industry that I'm in, that is very much a lot of them that are out there. And I want to keep my truck very neat and, and cleanly about that. But I begin to do that. So there's not a lot of financial investment. I even had an uncle go, hey, Brett, what do I have to help you to go do this? And I'm like, I don't know. But I really didn't want anybody backing me in that. I wanted to do it for me. I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to go, hey, I'm going to do this, fail or, success. I want to do this myself. And part of it's showing that I can do it. Even though my vision really is just for me and maybe one other person to be working. I don't have this.
I was going to ask you, what does success mean?
Success means being able to wake up in the morning, have a little time for what I do spiritually, and not feel rushed to get out of the house, even though I like to be at a job early to get started. I want a little more time. And lately I've been working. I'll go do 3-4 jobs after work, and I'm not getting home till later 9:00. And so that takes a toll on you, your family, even though I kind of have a high drive with energy, because I can leave a job and go, man, if I just had 2 more jobs to do tonight, I could knock those out. But I know that I got a family that I need to be home for as well. I got a bike that needs to be ridden, you know. I got 2 bikes that need to be ridden. Yeah. And, you know, learning to enjoy my life instead of just work. Part of the problem is I like to work. Mm-hmm. And I feel that it's an area where I am successful is working.
Yeah, but ultimately to do what you want, when you want, how you want.
To do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah. You know, if I want to take off and go on a trip with my wife, well, I can do that now, and I don't really have to ask off. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, it's just your schedule.
It's my schedule.
And your business.
In my business.
Yeah. There's a certain something to be said, and you kind of alluded to this about being able to go provide the hunter gatherer kind of mindset. There's a certain sense of pride, I think, that you get from having the independence and having control over everything, right? So there's no politics.
Yeah, there's nothing. I don't want to be a control freak about it, but I want to go out and know that I did it. I brought it home.
Sure.
I fed it to my family. I supplied them with what they needed, you know, the nourishment or the school books or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I want to know that I did that and I supplied it and I served them in that way. And I kind of do want it to fall on me. I mean, as scary as that part is, knowing that, hey, every penny you bring in is up to how hard you go out and work. But, hey, I've been working since I was like 14, 15 years old. Actually, earlier than that, if you consider the paper routes that I threw. Yeah. I've always known that I feel like I have it. But, man, it's just taking that step and that leap. Yeah. But it felt so good once I did walk in and go, hey, boss, here's my resignation in a letter form.
But that wasn't easy for you.
It was not easy. In fact, I walked out into what is our warehouse and just took a few moments, prayed again, and then walked in there. I waited till the end of the day. I was supposed to do this a few hours earlier. I waited 3 more hours, and I walked in and you know, and
because you had called me and you're like, all right, Brent, what day should a person quit?
What day? What time?
There's no good day, man. Pull the Band-Aid.
Yeah, and that's what kept going off in my mind is just pull the Band-Aid. You know, if it hurts them, you know, then
you got to take care of yourself.
They have their business and they'll figure it out.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So what was their reaction, if you can share?
My boss, we've never gone to church together, but we align spiritually in some ways. And so I said, it's just something I feel I need to do. And just like I've said here, I feel like I need to do it. I need to go out and, you know, get the deer, and I need to bring him home, and I need to feed him to my family, and it's something I got to prove to myself. My other boss may have not understood it that way, and that's fine. That's, you know, but he understood it. He didn't like it. At the same time, he may have had a word or two that, you know, wouldn't have been quite as flattering, but he goes, I know, I get it. So he got it down deep that it was more than I didn't like something about how they were doing.
How was the feeling once you actually were done?
Just a weight lifted, you know. I mean, I didn't have to hide anymore, you know. Not hiding in a bad sense, but just keeping it as quiet.
Sure.
I didn't rush out and tell a soul that I was doing it. Some of the guys that buy from that company actually use me as a sub for their services. And so I felt like once my boss said, so, well, did you tell, because there was a couple key clients that I specifically took care of and built their doors and stuff like that on the computer as their sales, you know, project manager, I guess you would say. I didn't even tell them until my boss goes, did you tell them? And I'm like, no, you was waiting for you to maybe say something. He goes, no, tell them. Pull the Band-Aid off. And I was like, all right, let's just get it off everywhere, you know, and started breaking it, and then, you know, broke it to some of the guys that I did. But some of them down deep knew Brett's going to do this eventually. And if anything, they are the ones that are technically, I guess, a competitor of mine. They have cheered me on.
That's cool.
And they're like, Brett, go do this. That's got awesome. This. You'll be good at it. And you won't have any.
Well, it's hard not to want success for good people. Right. And people who've worked with you and know you, you know, I saw you post today about officially being out, and you just see people's reaction. And that's what happens with people have a tremendous amount of respect for somebody and want them to be successful, right? So, so you get to be the protagonist in this story, and all our listeners get to cheer for you at the same time, right? So maybe talk to me about some of the challenges or some of the issues that you see right now that you're struggling with, or what are the things that are giving you so that stress that burden's lifted off,
right?
But it's just replaced with something else, right?
I mean, it's still replaced. Do you have with what it takes? Can you go out there? Can you plot the course to get from this mountain to this mountain to this mountain?
Yeah.
And I do have some goals that I do want set out, and some financial goals that I think I would be amiss and not to have a few of those things to shoot for. But I think just tactically what I do every day, I think there's three parts to the business. There's the front end of the business where I'm doing maybe the advertising and, who am I working with advertising? Obviously I'm a one man, with a truck kind of look right now, but do I have a lot of money to spend on advertising? Not really. So I want to be as wise about it as possible, but get as much bang for my buck as I can. So there's the advertising. There's also the insurances that you need to have. I do have a garage door opener that could fall out of the ceiling and drop on somebody's Tesla or Mercedes or high-end car. And I have heard of that happening. So yes, I make sure every lag bolt is into a stud. But there are some of those things, and not to mention, just if I have a guy do a door for me or whatever, I need to make sure that those things are covered. And so there's the insurance side that I haven't been real familiar with, but I'm finding is a little bit easier as you look at things online and you start looking at insurance, and obviously you're being tracked somewhere. So insurance stuff starts popping up. And honestly, that's how I found the insurance that I'm going to probably use. It's just something that's popped up online, and it's not necessarily a major firm, but it's just something that popped up online. And then probably the other is the reviews are a huge thing as far as advertising goes, whether you're dealing with Facebook or Yelp.
Customer reviews. And I really didn't catch it. I had a friend within the industry goes, "Oh man, I just got my 500th, Yelp review." And I'm like, all right, and went on about my business. Now I kind of get, okay, well, how do I get that 500 reviews, through different media outlets or social media outlets where people are going to be looking to hire you? And because it does definitely have influence people's decisions, right?
It does. It definitely does help, just because we don't have a phone book anymore. You can't just open it up and go to the Yellow Pages and go, okay, I'm going to go down, and I don't think there's anything like back in the day. Somebody used to start their company name with A so that in the Yellow Pages, it would end up on the highest, level. And it's just the advertising, I think, is so much more complex than, hey, we got a Yellow Page ad, or, we're advertising on this radio station. I mean, I have been super blessed that all my stuff has been word of mouth.
Right.
And I generally have pretty consistent business of people being happy. And then Nextdoor, I forgot about that. I mean, so many people use the Nextdoor app or whatever to find different businesses to use. And I found a fair amount and didn't even know, because I finally started asking, how did you hear about me?
It does make a difference. There's a couple of community groups here in our neighborhood, and we leverage it in the same way. Right. Because you want to word of mouth through local neighbors does make a huge difference, especially when you talk about businesses like yours and business like this. These are you're not going to come out here and do a gate job for me so far from you, right? That's not a good practical business for you. So there's going to be a certain range that you're going to be open to go, that you're going to say, all right, this is the range that's really the sweet spot to maximize my return on investment. Otherwise, you're just going to spend a lot of time in a vehicle.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, that is not my great suit. I hope I have a servant's heart. I really feel like I do, because my idea is to take care of you and your family, to know that whether it's a gate or a garage, those are the two biggest entrances into your home. or out of your home. In fact, one of my little slogans is, opening the door to your future. Because I think of somebody exiting their garage in the morning, that big door opened up, they're exiting out into their future or their gate. And so I want to do it as a security device or a safety to you and your family of taking care of it. Not just slapping something up there and moving on. I want that long-term relationship. I love to sit around and, I don't want to spend an hour with a customer after I'm done, but I want to know that I'm doing them a good job. And I've been known. I mean, I've got one customer an hour and a half away from my home. Call that crazy. It was good money. So it was worth it for me to do it. But gates inherently can have some issues and deal with the elements out there as far as settling ground and, and where I predominantly deal with, let me say gates, is gate operators. I can do the gate stuff as well, but the operators is kind of my forte in the technology of it, automating it.
Now you mean like being able to drive up and it automatically, like a push button or auto detection, or what are some of the features you're talking about?
Generally auto detection, you're getting into the commercial in the weekend systems on that, which I have done a few commercial, but most of mine has been residential home access where you're operating it off your phone.
Okay.
You can monitor it. You can be out of town, know your gate is opening. You can watch your kid open up the gate and go, why did you? In fact, I caught one of my sons doing that one time when he wasn't supposed to with a vehicle. And I'm like, man, gotta love technology.
You're selling it now. There's people out there going, wait, I can do that. All right.
So that's the main thing. But I've been known to drive a little bit, but it's got to be financially worth it, or you can really just spin your wheels, because there are some callbacks on gates, and that's why some guys won't do them. Is they get out there and they think they got one problem fixed and another problem arises.
So you talked about some of the tactical things that are like the struggles that you're up against next, right? In terms of insurance, which you're doing research and working through. Yep. You talked about the advertising, which, and probably. So what we'll do is we'll come back and revisit with you in a few months, and see what you've concluded. And obviously, you and I've been talking. I'm sharing some of my experience on the advertising side and through some social media promotions and things like that. And we're still learning too, right? So it's something we get to learn together. But what about the mental side? What are some of the challenges mentally? Because I think that's as big certainly from hearing your story, it's a mental thing that has prevented you from starting so far. Is that fair to say?
It is a mental thing. It's a mental thing that you just want to provide for your family, and you watch the hunting shows and they come home empty, and I'm like, I can't come home empty. It rides on this. I mean, my wife has a job. I would love her to work for me, because she knows a construction background and she could be, a great help to the company. But it is a mental struggle, and that may be even a little more weight on me going, okay, you're really the only income in the family. But it is just, I'm very excited to know that I get to go out every single day and I get to make my day my own. And I get to help people, and that's something, even from being in ministry, I love to do, was help and serve people.
Sure.
I got to do that where I was at. Some of that was kind of being taken away in some senses as a relationship was, but
just because of the strategic direction that the company was taking.
Yeah, because of the strategic direction, whether it was COVID related or not. That's just the strategic direction.
Less interaction directly with the customers.
Less interaction, yeah. Right? And I love to, sit with them and encourage them, and
sure,
and
which is not necessarily a bad thing for somebody that's trying to scale a business. You may not have time to sit and have coffee with everybody. Right,
correct.
When you're trying to run a business, it's not bad on their part, but for you, that's a part of the job you enjoy.
Correct. Just I yearn for that a little bit slower of a pace, and I live at such a fast pace life. I mean, every night this week I've worked till 9:00.
Yeah.
Or as a customer, well, I mean, if they said come by at 10:00, you never know. Brett might come by at 10:00 and fix your garage door, But it's just. And it's just the mentalness attitude of just looking at it from a different place, that I have what it takes. I can go out there and do it.
So I cut you off. You're maybe three items that you're struggling with. What is the continued mental challenge that you're up against right now?
The continued mental challenge. Is probably, can I sustain what I'm doing? It's when that phone stops ringing that you start getting a little worried.
Yeah.
I've joked with a few people going, man, I've mowed the yard 4 times today. The phone still hasn't rung. And they're like, those times are going to come, Brett. There's going to be those times where it's really busy, and then there's the times where it's not. And I've seen that, and it's just mentally preparing, going, okay, Brett, it's going to be okay. Or mentally preparing, going, okay, what are you not doing, advertising-wise, social media-wise, to reach the homeowners now, to get them, to get in front of them that your services.
Sure.
And that's probably the main struggle. I'm a busybody, and so I always like to be doing something. That's why I was talking about, well, I've mowed the yard 4 times. I've got to be doing something. I'll be reorganizing my garage 5 times until you call me. And so it's probably just the mental, that I've got to be busy. I think when you're working for a company, hey, every day I'm going to go in, I'm going to get my pay that day, or I'm going to get my pay that week, that month. And you don't have to really worry about, did I get accomplished today what I wanted to get accomplished, or did I just kind of get out there and spin my wheels and just have the wherewithal to go, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to get it done today, and we're going to take care of people. But as a side product, we're going to make some money.
So you've kicked this thing off, and you've gotten started. You've really been doing this for a while, but you're officially kicked off. How's business been really over the past week or so?
It's been really busy. Yeah. Like I said, I've worked till 8 or 9 o'clock each night this week, and this is Thursday. One of those was kind of more of a business meeting with the person that's going to help me with some social media and advertising, a younger person. But before that, I was busy that week, into every evening, kind of joking with my wife, go, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late tonight. And she goes, well, what else is new? What else is different? Yeah. And then where I really noticed it is I had gone out of town, and my phones were still on, and I was getting several calls, usually a day, and I was watching them. I was trying to analyze, okay, well, I didn't get any calls today, or I didn't get any calls yesterday, or I got 3. And I had a guy doing some stuff for me while I was gone, somebody that I trust, mainly on garage doors. And I never really have to check his work, even though I generally go back and check, to make sure that my customer is satisfied and taken care of. But and that was the week before I was going into the resign. I'd already made the decision before I went on this trip that I was resigning when I got back. And I was just using that as a test just to see how the calls would come in, how I would feel on the days that my phone wasn't ringing. And that was with no advertising. That was still just all the word of mouth, all the connections, all the previous advertising that I have out there, maybe through stickers, through business cards, through what I call drive-bys. If I see your gate hanging off the gate, or your operator hanging off, I've got little cards with that are magnets. I slap them on a mailbox, not on the outside, not on the inside.
That's illegal.
I think that's illegal. So those are what I call drive-bys.
Yeah.
And so, because it really burns me when I see somebody not using their gate operator. I was like, that thing's meant to function, guy.
Yeah.
Let's get that secure for your home.
Or somebody doesn't have the operator on there.
Or somebody doesn't have the operator on there. I don't touch those as much, but I pray and hope that they call.
Because those are a little more significant, right? Then you got to get electricity to that spot. It's
electricity, solar is a big thing, because there are write-offs for solar these days.
Gotcha.
In Texas, solar can be good as long as you have a lot of, as long as you have the sunlight.
So next time we get together, we're going to be spending some time on advertising. and we're going to spend some time on each of these items, right?
Yes,
So-
because there's some things that I have to get ironed out
Yeah.
a little more than they
Right.
are. I mean, they're laid out and they're there.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm invested in this thing with you now.
Yeah.
So I'm doing research too. so we're learning as we go.
We will collaborate.
And I suspect we'll have some listeners out there I've got lots of friends that know a lot of stuff. So they're going to be pinging me going, hey, you should do this. You should do this. Right.
Well, that's one thing is I think that there's a wealth of knowledge out there. And, I'm on this journey, but I know I'm not on this journey alone.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people that can shed light and go, hey, I wouldn't do this, or I would do this, or
Right,
it's something
right.
that's a good idea.
Yep.
So
And networking is powerful. Jamie and I spent bought lunch for somebody last week just to sit down and talk and pick their brain about social media and Facebook and Instagram advertising and things like that. So it goes a long way. But that's the fun stuff to me because you're learning something new.
right, and I know nothing about that, and even though my daughter does most of that, does a lot of that stuff. That's the person that I was sitting down with, and I bought her dinner last night. I mean, what teenager is, or she's not a teenager anymore, but what is dad isn't gonna do that for her? But I want to know it. I kind of want to do that. It's not that I don't want to pay somebody, but I want to be able to sit down in the morning and I want to be able to do what I can. I know that the big dogs need to do some of the stuff behind the scenes that I'm never gonna know how to do from my iPad, but I also want to be able to do some of it myself. That's part of it to me, because part of this whole journey is it's a challenge. I mean, I look in nature, I look at a mountain and I want to go to the top. And we've been on trips and we're like, specifically in Alaska, and I haven't made it to the top of Mount Roberts. I want to go to the very top.
Yeah, me
I
too.
don't want to stop halfway up.
Yeah.
Usually it gets where you can't because of the weather, and it has 3 times.
Yeah.
But
We got close.
I want to go find out how to get to the top. And
We got close.
We got close.
We got close.
We got close.
Close enough to get there and hang out with the marmots.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right, I have maybe a couple of final questions for you. First things, let listeners know a little bit about you. How many Leathermen do you own?
Well, that's scary. How do you know that? Who have you been talking to?
Oh, come on.
Yes, I have.
You shipped you can't travel with a Leatherman. I watched you ship one to Alaska.
That is funny.
And that's how there's this saying, everybody's normal till you get to know them. And then everybody's got a weird thing about them. Yeah. This one's one of yours.
This is one of my weird things. Yes, I have shipped Leathermans to states that I have traveled to, because if I usually do a carry-on, I want to make sure my clothes arrive. But I don't know. I'd have to count. I do have a Leatherman display case that a company I used to work for, I got them to buy them more as a selfish thing, going, hey, every guy is going to use this in the industry. In reality, they necessarily didn't. I generally do carry one with me at all times. So
would you have one on you right now?
It's in my truck.
Okay.
Ballpark. I have 2 in my truck.
Ballpark.
I probably have about 8 to 10.
Wow. Yeah.
And I still look at them and go, look at that one. I mean, I have 1 or 2 that are kind of like a prized possession that somebody gave me, but
right.
Do
you have one that is there one you have a favorite? One that does?
I do have a favorite
that makes julienne fries or something. Is it?
No, it's just a charged TTI that a kid that's like a son that when I was in ministry, I was going through a really difficult time, and it was a Father's Day, and my kids were not with me at that time, but he gave it to me, and it was just one of the greatest things.
Nice.
It just spoke to my heart.
So a sentimental connection.
Very sentimental. Like, even though it needs to be repaired, I won't send it back because, even though they have a 25-year warranty, Leatherman should really hire me. I could be a great spokesman.
I'm bringing it up for that reason. I'll tag them in social media.
I did go to Oregon on a trip, and I purposely stayed over to go to the Leatherman factory.
Really?
Yeah.
And how was it? Was it everything you imagined?
Well, I didn't get to go to the factory. I'm sorry. I got to go to the store.
Yeah.
And I wanted to buy one from the store.
And which one did you get?
I think it was the rebar. It was one of the newer ones out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm asking you.
It's a sickness that I have.
I'm asking enough detailed questions so listeners can be like, Oh, he's really into that. Yeah, that's right.
I just like them because you can fix things with
Yeah,
them, and
absolutely.
you've always got on. You're like, here, I got that fixed.
I do own one, and it's fantastic. I really do.
Is it a real Leatherman? Or
It is legit.
Is it
I have
an
some
off-brand?
knockoff ones
All right,
too.
all right.
I have a Craftsman or something like that I found, but the best one that I own is a legit Leatherman. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the Wave. I don't know what version
That is their
Yeah.
most popular
it's
selling
great.
one.
It is. It's sharp too, man. I've cut myself with it many times,
Right.
like an idiot. So,
I still use them generally on a daily basis. So.
wow, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I remember that about you.
The only one I will not get is the bracelet. I just can't do that.
Wait, there's a Leatherman bracelet.
There is a Leatherman bracelet, but I won't wear it because I don't really wear jewelry. So.
Oh, Brett. Okay, so we got to work on you there. You get.
I'm pretty stubborn. It won't
You need to
happen.
open your mind a little bit. Okay, so a lot of what we cover on the podcast is, and we'll get into this with you as we progress through the series and get updates from you in terms of how the business is going. Talk to us a little bit about what name of your company. We've talked a lot about your business.
It's called Integrity.
Where does that come from?
Integrity Garage Door and Gate. I don't know. It was I had it as Integrity Services for a while because, like I may have mentioned, I did handyman for quite a while and just kind of enjoyed working on homes, and then was finding out I didn't have time to work on my own home, and just the amount of material that I had to have to, do the drywall, do the repair, do this, the texture on the walls. I just felt like it was too much, and I felt like I needed to narrow my focus, but still have multiple streams of income coming in within my business to a degree. Yeah. So I narrowed it to the garage door and gates, and really more fell in love with some of the technology side of them. And so that's kind of where, and integrity, I figured if I go and I lead with that I'm going to do a job right. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability where I can walk away with what I did and be proud of it and not be embarrassed. I mean, there's a lot of gate operators that people have they've just thrown up there. Well, I take pride that I weld it on. I don't just screw it on. I mean, obviously if it's wood mount, I can't, but I weld it on. I do a job. I tell people I want to do a job once because I don't want to come back.
Yeah.
And that's, because it eats into my profitability to have to continue to go back. I want you to call me back later on down the road when you need a new battery or you need, X, Y, and Z, or if you had an electrical storm and whatever.
So we're going to wind up getting into a lot of details in terms of the things that you're going through. Okay. But for this, to kind of close this episode out, it's taken you a long time to get to this spot. If you could go back in time, 7 years ago, 8, 10 years ago, whatever the right time is when you were at a spot, what's the thing you'd have told yourself that detailed thing to help either ease you to get into the spot or to accelerate you to where you'd say, like, okay, start this sooner?
I think it would be just to...
There's folks out there that are on the fence.
Trust your gut.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trusting myself. I had all these voices around me, 3 to 4 that I can think of, 2 that were pushing me pretty hard, and I wasn't listening. I was not listening, and I could be so much further down the road right now. I could be so much maybe more successful, not just monetarily, but just in the knowledge that I have. But I knew, and the other part is do it without, I don't want to have regrets.
Yeah.
I want to have regrets that I didn't try this.
Yeah, sure.
And because most people hate to fail, and view failing, and I've had to view failing in a different way. If I fail, I fail. I just pick up and move on.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not getting any younger.
Now the question would be, would younger you listen?
Would younger I listen? I don't know. My body might be in a different place if I was younger on doing some of the stuff, but I won't have those aches. Yeah. But I think it's just kind of living without regret, just doing it and taking that risk.
Yeah.
My risks have been calculated. I think I haven't taken that just, hey, let's go jump off the cliff today, guys.
Sure.
I'm not that kind of risk taker. I'm more of a calculated risk taker.
Well, I'm excited. I think this is going to be a great series because, like I said, we get to live vicariously through you. People who are out there thinking about taking the jump off the cliff can just kind of, I love watching farming YouTube channels. It's such a weird thing to be into. Like I said, everybody's normal till you get to know them.
Right.
But I love watching. There's a guy named Sunny Farms, or there's a YouTube channel called Sunny Farms, and I love watching. It's a father-son, and really the son does all the videos, and it's this large scale. Like they have cattle and they're planting tons of things, and the sheer amount of equipment and tractors, and just watching all this equipment. I love this big heavy equipment and watching them go through and process and use them. The size is enormous. And when I watch that, I go, yeah, I don't ever want to do that. I can just live vicariously through them and what they do, and it's fun to watch. I'll just stick with my little tractor and my 4 acres. That'll be just fine.
It is. Stories, people's stories, you can learn so much through them. You can learn, hey, I don't want to do that, or I do want to do that, or hey, I need to take the step, or there's an adventure, I believe, out there for everybody, and something awaiting them. It may not be that you're a business owner, because I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I just don't know that that's in my DNA. I have no idea, like, if this didn't work out, what I would go do. Don't have a plan B. I mean, love to have a coffee shop, but it's not real creative. It's like black coffee in a log cabin going, dude, here's your coffee. Exactly. I'd love to sit down with people to have coffee. But
I'm excited. I think I'm hoping that people are inspired, that have been on the fence, that will listen to it and be like, oh, well, I can do that. Right. So that's my hope. Good first interview. Really, thanks for the taking the time to drive out here to Timbuktu. And
I like Timbuktu. I'm out in these places a lot.
Yeah, you're out in the country now, and I'll come to you maybe next time, and we'll do round 2 and let everybody get a checkup on how business is going.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
thanks,
great.
Brent.
Thank you.
Jamie, we say everybody's normal until you get to know them.
That's very true.
The Leatherman thing here with Brett is one of the things that reminded me of that. Is when the first time I met him and he had a Leatherman shipped to him in Alaska. I saw he had this thing in Alaska. I go, how did you get that Leatherman on the plane? And he's like, oh, I had it shipped here. And there's the way he said it, you could tell he was a little embarrassed to share.
Shameful.
Yeah, because then I realized I had to pull that thread. I was like, there is a story here. This guy died. So I always look for these little weird anomalies about people because they're the things that make me love people as you find these things out.
So that's like you and your toothpick.
Yeah, I do have a toothpick thing.
You have got a toothpick thing. You always have a toothpick in your mouth.
Most of the time.
And you can like flip them in your mouth.
I can actively right now, currently.
That's not cool. That's weird. That's super weird.
It's weird that you bring it up and I've got one in my hand.
When do you not?
Yeah, I usually have a
Every
toothpick
time I wash your clothes, they're like in your pockets.
All right, what's yours?
I don't have anything.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
You've got several. I would say, well, I don't know how crazy unusual it is, but how many books did you consume this week?
3.
3 books in 1 week. And that's probably a low week for you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I have a book that you just bought me called Dream Big by Bob Goff that I cannot wait to read. It will take me a month to get through that book.
Yeah.
You would finish it this afternoon.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's not completely normal. But Jamie, you have other strange things that may be a little more unusual about you.
Maybe.
Why don't you tell people every preposition? I'm talking about every preposition in the English language. If you got
in alphabetical order.
Do you know them by chance?
Yes, but I mean, I was required to learn them in school, and they just never went around.
Yeah, there's a lot of things people were required to learn in school. I had to go through chemistry. I remember none of that.
Yeah.
And they are?
Really?
Uh-huh.
About, above, across, after, against, along, among, around, at, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, besides, between, beyond, by, down, during, for, from, in, inside, and to, like, near, of, off, on, onto, over, past, since, through, to, towards, underneath, until, up, upon, with, within, without.
This is not rational. Like, I can barely remember the continents, and if it weren't for a song they taught me in kindergarten, I probably wouldn't remember those, and even then I have to go, oh, yeah, Australia, because I always forget that one.
You're making me out to be such a nerd.
All right. Folks, that's enough fun and games. I hope you liked getting to meet and getting to meet Brett and getting to hear a little bit of his story and background. Next time, we're going to get into more detailed things about that he's dealing with. He and I have been texting back and forth and kind of unpacking some of the challenges he's facing as he goes through creating an LLC. And we talked about advertising. And I don't have all the answers, but it's going to be a fun journey. And like I said, you get to live vicariously through this guy.
Yeah.
Have a good week, folks.